So hello, everyone. Happy Friday. Thank you so much for being here. This is a really exciting way to kind of spend a Friday afternoon with student leaders and advocacy, and of course with our very own Assemblymember Gipson and Senator Bradford. So on behalf of the Office of External Relations at CSUDH, I just want to say thank you to ASI and to all the student body and staff that are here today. I feel like David and I have a really unique and cool job because we were both in ASI in our sort of undergraduate days where we were, the student leaders that are before you and doing all of the advocacy. And we are super fortunate enough to continue to work alongside student leaders every academic year. And so any chance that we get to work with our student leaders and sort of blend the lines of the work that we do on behalf of the university and then the work that the students are doing, it's always just really a pleasure and an opportunity. And Daisha knows that when I was in undergrad, I was director of legislative affairs, and it directly aligned what I'm doing as far as my career. So I fully believe in the work of ASI and that it can be a really model opportunity for your career. So I just wanted to say thank you for being here. I am just really going to just support ASI and let them sort of run the show, but I appreciate them giving me the first couple of minutes to just say thank you and to say welcome. I see President Parham just entered, so we're really happy to be here. And after ASI President does her introductions, she'll throw it back to me, and then I'll introduce Dr. Parham for some opening remarks, and then Daisha will take it away with Assemblymember Gipson and Senator Bradford. And that really concludes my remarks. So thank you all for being here. We'll continue to admit folks as they pop in, but I think this is really going to be a special treat. So ASI President Rehab, take it away.
Thank you, Dr. Bradshaw. Hello, everyone. For those of you who do not know me or unaware of my position, my name is Rahab Shoaib, and I serve as your Associated Students President. And so I really just want to thank all of the students who have taken the time to come here on a Friday to get civically engaged and just to ask questions. Sometimes as students, we're not really sure of how to get involved with government or just different things that are happening within our institution that are affected by legislation. So it's really amazing to see so many students come out on a Friday in virtual programming. This is so great. I also want to thank Dr. Bradshaw and David Gamboa for their contributions and help in supporting us throughout this process. Our executive director, Ms. Rashida, was also very instrumental in just helping and supporting. And also definitely want to thank our legislative affairs representative, Deja Campbell. She is really excited to bring something like this to students so that you have more opportunities to speak and just share your voices and the different things that you're going through. So thank you all for being here. We're really excited to hear your feedback and hear what you have to say. And I'll turn it back over to Dr. Bradshaw.
Thank you. We're going to keep moving right along. As I mentioned, President Parham had just popped in, and just by way of introduction, I just want to make a note that we're super fortunate to have an institutional leader who makes events and programs like this a priority. I was working with his office, and he wanted to make sure that he made an appearance. And I absolutely love that. I appreciate that the work of our students are always a priority to him. And even with a booked calendar, he will find a way, even in the virtual format, which I think may even be working out better for him because he can kind of pop in and out more. So we're happy to have you here, President Parham. I know you have a full day today, but definitely on behalf of our office and ASI, we appreciate the work that your office did to even put this on your calendar for opening remarks. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our president of CSUDH, Dr. Thomas Parham. You can't hear me, or we can't hear you? Maybe I need to ask to unmute. There you go. I think you're on.
So now they're allowing me to unmute. Okay, the host was not allowing me to unmute. So they're like,
there's a lot of hosts here.
I know, that's right. It's like, this brother ain't got nothing to say, so, you know, let's do that. Anyway, first of all, let me say thank you to the illustrious Dr. Bradshaw. God, it sounds so good when we say that. And to David Gamboa, who in managing our government and legislative affairs do a phenomenal job of really helping us out. And as I traverse the state and both the Capitol in Washington, D.C., as well as other places around the globe, these two are my American Express cards. I never leave home without them. So I appreciate both of you for navigating that space. Also, I'm always so glad to see our student leadership. And one of the things I've been very fortunate with in my 2.5 years, coming up on 3 years now, is to always be surrounded by exceptionally engaged and committed students who just care a lot, not only about their education, but about the future of this campus. And I couldn't be more pleased, I think, with the leadership that's there and the way students are engaged in trying to balance both getting involved in forums like this, as well as managing their own academic endeavors, as well as working and other things that they do. It's just pretty phenomenal. So I'm always delighted to join our students. Also, I want to say hello to both State Senator Steve Bradford and Assemblyman Mike Gipson, good friends. And in my tenure here at this campus, they have simply embraced me as an educator and a leader, and have really partnered with me to do some phenomenal things. So they know, I think, that Dominguez Hills always is a home for them. And we appreciate the advocacy they provide for us in the legislature. So I want to thank our legislative champions. I call them champions literally, for their continued, really, and ongoing support of our university, because I think it's critical for us. And they understand, not only in the context of a CSU, about how under-resourced and in cases neglected this Dominguez Hills campus has been, but they are as committed as I am to trying to transform this environment and making sure that we have this culturally rich mecca of educational genius and opportunity that is supported, I think, by resources from the state. So I want to thank them. And I think their commitment and involvement in our university really positions our students, both the campus community outside and our students who are then looking for opportunities as they negotiate the pathway to productivity and success, to becoming top performing individuals outside as they position themselves for the workforce. But also all this intervention is helping us to become what I hope will be the model urban university, I think, in this nation. And I think we can do that both with the students we have, as well as the legislative support that we enjoy. And to our students, I want you to know, I want to say thank you, because you sometimes don't believe your voices matter, but they really do. And they matter to me, they matter to our government and legislative affairs folk, but they also matter to our state legislators who are always asking us about your voices. And one of the things I'm most proud of, my good friend Cornel West reminds us that there's a fundamental difference between a voice and an echo. Let me say that again. There is a difference, my friends, between a voice and an echo. And what our students have done is find a way to, separate out the noise that is just a democratic sanity and find their voice in the midst of all the challenges, I think, that we have that relate to health pandemics and financial challenges that the state is having, as well as the social unrest and the calls for social justice that are there. And I love the fact that they have found the voice. So students, know that your advocacy makes a difference, and you know that you have two strong advocates in both the Assemblymember Mike Gipson and in State Senator Steve Bradford, who care a lot about this particular campus and your education. And our university couldn't be better represented by two more courageous individuals who just have the heart of lions as they work on our behalf. So I want to say thank you to everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. And I look forward to sitting in as long as I can join you before I'm jumping on to another Zoom meeting today. So nice to see y'all.
Thank you so much, President Parham, for sharing those remarks. We truly appreciate it. Now I'm going to be introducing our Assembly member, Mike Gipson, and Senator Bradford. I will be reviewing their bios. So for Assemblymember Gipson, he was born and raised in Watts and always knew that he wanted to make a positive difference in the lives of those he encountered throughout his community and beyond. His undeniable passion for public service propelled him to serve a council member for the city of Carson for nearly a decade before transitioning to California State Assembly. On November 4th, 2014, Assemblymember Gipson was elected by overwhelming margin to represent California's 64th Assembly District. That includes the communities of Carson, Compton, North Long Beach, Rancho Dominguez, South Los Angeles, Watts, Willowbrook, and Wilmington. Assemblymember Gipson currently serves as Democratic Caucus Chair, responsible for driving the legislative decision-making process for the Majority Caucus, addressing statewide issues, and holds weekly meetings to discuss and set caucus priorities. Assemblymember Mike Gipson has supported and co-authored legislation on criminal justice reform, our brothers and sisters of labor and the environment, affordable housing, and expanded health care. Thank you so much, Mike Gipson. Moving on to our, excuse me. Can you all hear me? Hopefully. Yes, good. Okay. Stephen Bradford brings a lifetime of experience to the California State Senate and over 2 decades of public service, and now as state senator. Stephen Bradford has proven himself to be an unwavering citizen activist. He views himself as a public servant and not a politician. Public service was instilled in him by his parents, who taught him the value of giving back to his community. Senator Bradford currently serves as the chair of the Public Safety Committee and the chair of the Calendar Legislative Black Caucus. Thank you so much, Senator Bradford. I will now turn it over for opening remarks from Assemblymember Mike Gipson. Please share with us.
Thank you very much. My favorite quote: life begins the end the moment you start being silent about the things that matter. In the end, we will not remember the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends. We will have to repent in this generation, not merely for the victorious words and action of the bad people, but the appalling silence of the good people. There comes a time that silence is a form of betrayal. I want to first of all greet each and every one of you. It's good to see my good friend and the person who provides great leadership to the region, and that's Dr. Parham. We thank you, sir, for being here. Thank you so very much, Sister Campbell and Dr. Bradshaw. Been friends with you for so many years. And my good friend, David Gamboa, when he was ASI president, I was on the city council, and we go that far back. I think every ASI president, I've always had a personal relationship with those individuals, but I'm absolutely thrilled to be here. Thrilled to be here on this Friday, February 26th. It is still Black History Month, and we celebrate it, and we celebrate all that it has to offer because we realize and recognize that Black history is America's history. There will be no United States of America without African Americans being in this space. So again, I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to be joined by my colleague, Senator Bradford, and thank all of you who helped organize and bring us all together for this town hall meeting and discussion. So thank you so very much.
Thank you so much, Assemblymember Mike Gipson. Moving on to Senator Bradford, may you please share your opening remarks?
Thank you, Ms. Campbell. Thank you for the invitation to participate. I want to thank the ASI Student Association, as well as Dr. Parham and David Gamboa for this invitation to be engaged in dialogue with the students of Cal State University Dominguez Hills. Dr. Parham stated that Assemblyman Gipson and I have the heart of a lion or the courage of a lion, but I have the courage of the bull, of the toro, because I am an alum of Cal State Dominguez Hills. So I want to just put that out there. Go Toros. I'm honored to have graduated from this institution, a college that provided me a great opportunity for growth and civic engagement. It was here that the light came on as to why I wanted to get into public services, because I met an individual while at Cal State Dominguez Hills, Mark Dimely, who was the son of our former congressman, our former state senator, our former assemblyman, and the state's only African-American lieutenant governor, that in the person of Mervyn M. Dimely, where the Dimely Institute is housed on that campus. It was through Congressman Dimely at the time's encouragement that I got involved in giving back to my community. He didn't encourage me to run for office. He encouraged me to get involved in my community, and it's led me to where I am today. So again, I want to appreciate all that the university has done and will continue to do, the importance of this university. And as stated, we're in the midst of Black history, and it's important to know our history. That's why it's so important that we passed ethnic studies last year, so we will have ethnic studies that's going to be provided back into our colleges, but we also have to make sure we pass ethnic studies this year that affords our high school students to know their history, because often it's stated people who do not know their history are doomed to repeat it. So I'm excited again to be here and look forward to the dialogue, but more importantly, the questions that the students might have of me and Assemblyman Gipson. So again, thank you for this opportunity to participate.
Thank you so much. Okay, so we will now be getting started with our questions. Just an overview, if you all have any questions, you can definitely send them directly to Stephen James. He's on here, you just type it in the chat. I will now introduce myself more clearly. Hello everyone, for those of you who may not know who I am, my name is Deja Campbell. I am the Director of Legislative Affairs for CSUDH. My job is basically to relay all the policies and legislation that relates to students so that they are aware of how it affects them and so forth. We will now begin with our questions. Starting off, how do we handle the pandemic moving forward? I would like to go back on campus with the stay-at-home order is lifted. Is that a reality? And anyone feel free to chime in. Assemblymember Gipson or Senator Steve Bradford.
I would first say we have to listen to the doctors and the scientists, the medical experts first and foremost, in making sure that we do this in a safe and responsible manner. It's true that we want students on all levels back in the classroom. We've seen the devastating effect that this pandemic has had on learning loss, both for our K through 12 as well as our university and college university students. I mean, part of the learning experience is the interaction not only with your fellow students, but with your professors directly as well. I enjoyed office hours with my professors to allow me to ask questions that the classroom environment didn't afford me. And that's the same right now with this distance learning. It just doesn't allow for the personal interactions that education requires. So we must first, like I say, listen to the science, but we are working hard to make sure that we get a hand on this virus, this pandemic. And I'm not here to throw stones, but if we had someone in the White House last year that was a little bit more compassionate and had a little bit more empathy, I think we would have abated this a lot sooner and had a better control. But we see the numbers going down in California. We see the numbers going down across the country. And again, the governor is now looking to open schools real soon, but we have to do it in a safe and responsible manner. Thank you.
And thank you very much for your question. I don't know why this keeps going off, but thank you very much for your question. Just to add, Senator Bradford wouldn't throw stones, and I respect that, but I think we should throw a brick, because the person who was in the White House is a reason for the mess we're in right now in terms of this pandemic. Had they worked swiftly, I don't think we would be in the situation right now. But again, just to echo what Senator Bradford has already said, we must do everything that we can to follow the guidelines of our healthcare professionals. They're guiding us through this whole situation. We having to flatten the curve. I think there's great things on the horizons in terms of flattening the curve by the amount of vaccines that's coming in. Right there on Cal State University Dominguez Hills campus is hopefully will be a site exclusively for Cal State University Dominguez Hills. And then we also have the Dignity Sports Complex that are administering the vaccines and throughout the entire region. But we also need to make sure that people of color get the vaccine. We understand what has happened in the past. I'm not disillusioned because it's chronicled in our history books in terms of what government has done, the Tuskegee experiment, a whole 9 yards. But this is not that. We're in a different time. It is absolutely imperative that people of color get the vaccine so that we can, one, get past this, get through this. And I believe that we will do that. I think the reality is that we all want to see everybody, us go back to normal. We want to go back to our schools. We want to be able, a fellowship with our friends and family and things of that nature. I, for one, who lost 2 family members early April of last year due to COVID-19, as well as a friend who attended our church who passed away at the age of 41 years of age. And this thing continues on with people. I have absolutely seen whole families, mothers, fathers, and 2 children, caskets lined up due to this pandemic. And so I stress that we'll get through this. I believe we will get through this together, but we have to follow what our healthcare experts have instructed us to do. So that's the one thing I wanted to add. I think the Senator articulated very well.
Thank you so much. I think that definitely clarifies things for us. It gives us more of a view on where we stand and how we can move forward due to this pandemic. So thank you so much for your responses. We're going to be discussing more on mental health awareness. That is another growing issue for a lot of students, and we have some questions in regards to that. So the question is, will you support student advocacy towards mental health awareness? If so, how will you support it and what are your plans?
Sure. Thank you very much. Those who know me, those who've, since I've been in State Assembly, we've done, first of all, I support it and will continue to support it, resources going into mental health for students. I absolutely walk in this so much that even last night, I had a healing circle where we brought people from different walks of life talking about, as well as we had a mental health care professional on the line. We had about a number of people, close to 20 people, and people were just talking about what they're experiencing, what they're going through, and the trauma, the mental health issues that they're experiencing that's caused by this pandemic. Many of you are wearing not just one mask, many of you are wearing 2 and 3 masks. And even when your mask is not on, you're still wearing a mask. And that mask is to cover up what you're going through, the hurt and pain, the disappointment, the depression that you're going through. And so we will continue to support, continue to rally around healing circles so people can heal. I'm a firm believer that we overcome by our testimonies. And we had last night people who were very emotional, who was crying, who was at their wits' end, but we had a healthcare professional, a mental health care professional who was giving instructions, giving tidbits on how to turn the corner, to try to find a space that they can be in. We've all gone through some hell, even myself. I mean, if anybody tell you they're not going through something, you tell them I say that they are damn lie, because everybody is going through some shit right now with this pandemic. We can't go out and visit our friends, see our families. We all have to be covered up. We can't touch each other. And many of you on this call know you like touching people. You like hugging people when you greet them and shaking people's hands. Well, this pandemic has taken that away. And I'm a firm believer that we will get back to where we used to get back to, but we want people who are going through some issues not to be in this by yourselves. You're not alone. We want you to reach out to some healthcare professionals. We want you to get the help that you need. because we understand that mothers and fathers are dying and things of that nature. Life is turned upside down, and you should not be going through this trauma in silence by yourself and putting on 5 or 10 masks trying to mask it. It's okay to go and get help. It's okay to seek some counseling. It's okay because you're not in this thing by yourself.
I actually just say amen and keep on going after that. But the issues are real, as Assemblyman Gipson has clearly articulated. And yes, I'm very much supportive of mental health services for not only students, but all people. I mean, many of the people who are homeless and have been homeless well before this pandemic was suffering from mental health issues. It's no secret that this pandemic has only shined a light on situations that already existed. We knew students on all levels were challenged, but now under this pandemic, it's even more so. I'm a son of a psych nurse, so I'm very much familiar with the need of having access to quality healthcare and professionals who understand and know the right questions to ask, but also can recognize some of the symptoms. So it's important. Do I have any legislation specifically in this area? No, but there has been legislation that was introduced last year. One of my former colleagues, former Senator Jim Bell, has probably been the leading legislator in California over the last 20 years on mental health issues. So it's a topic that is at the forefront of much of what we do pre-pandemic, and it will be something that we continue on post-pandemic. So yes, I'm very much in support of providing the resources that for students and anyone else who might need it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much, Mr. Gipson, for that straightforward and direct response, because that's honestly the truth of it. We're going to move on to our next question. Thank you so much for your responses. What bills have you supported or opposed that affected students? Why did you take that position? So in a nutshell, there's a lot of bills, but the ones that stand out to you are very memorable or have a direct effect on students. What stance have you taken on them and why?
Well, piece of legislation I introduced last year that I'm very much proud of, and it has garnered national attention, was SB 206, the Fair Pay to Play Act. That allows student athletes, regardless of whether it's male or female, to monetize their name, likeness, and image. Student athletes are the only scholarship students on campus who cannot monetize their name, likeness, and image. If you're a computer science major or a music major and you write a song or you develop an app, you can monetize that. But if you're an athlete and you want to sign an autograph, you can't do that. SB 206 allows you now to do that. I'm happy that the NC2A has embraced much of what we put forth over a year ago. Matter of fact, it was in 2019 that we passed this legislation. And now you see states across the country who are embracing this. And the reason why this is so important is because the majority of student athletes on revenue generating sports are African American. Whether it's on our basketball team, our football team, our track and field team, they're African Americans. We're the ones that put butts in seats in all these arenas all across this country. But many of these students, despite being on scholarship, go to bed hungry many nights. And when they go back east to play in cold weather, don't even have a top coat to wear. And even if, and people think, oh, they have a full ride, but a full ride does not pay for your lab equipment. If you need a laptop for class, your scholarship doesn't pay for that. Or if you need equipment for whatever classes you need, it doesn't pay for that. So we need to shine the light on the great need that African-American students go through, but more importantly, women athletes, because this helps women athletes tremendously, because outside of college, there's only 2-3 maybe professional opportunities for women. It's either playing soccer, it's playing in the WNBA, or it's possibly playing tennis. It's no other, there's no baseball, professional baseball, no professional football. Men have far more opportunities. So this allows women athletes for that 15 minutes of fame, usually when they're in college, to monetize it. Caitlin Ayashi, who was the gymnast at UCLA, who scored that perfect 10 3 years ago, had she been able to monetize that moment, she would have probably made hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars. The moment she graduated, she had a book of poetry. Nobody was interested in that book of poetry after she graduated because she was no longer performing. There's no professional gymnastic tour, so to speak. So this really helps women athletes as well.
For one, what I've done is we, as Senator Bradford made mention of, we want to make sure that ethnic studies, not only in our universities, but also in our high schools, making sure it's a requirement. I'm a strong believer that we need ethnic studies being taught in our schools, so that I think a lot of the racial divide wouldn't take place if people know the background and the history from where African Americans come from, where Latinos come from, where, you know, our indigenous brothers and sisters have come from. And so teaching ethnic studies is something that's absolutely important to me. I'm carrying a bill right now that will increase male, not only African American males, but Latino males going into becoming teachers. It is absolutely that we increase males of color going into this profession. And so we have a bill that we just introduced that's going through the legislative process. It is being supported by the superintendent of LA Unified School District and our superintendent of public instructions, Superintendent Tony Thurman. In addition to that, I authored and carried the bill that will increase or redo the Foster Youth Bill of Rights. These are students who are foster students and living in foster care homes who don't understand the rights. We did a revamp of all those rights and increase those rights. Not only will they themselves know their rights, but their guardians will also know their rights under the law in the state of California. We also did work and continue to work banning chem spray and chemical spray, pepper spray. A number of counties have already banned this use. And so we want to ban it. Can you believe the county board of supervisors banned the use of chem spray, but they're still using it on our students that are being detained in our system. And so we're going to create a bill to making sure that they understand they can no longer use chemical spray in our students or on our students moving forward. So I've supported community schools and we'll continue to do that because we want to make sure that our schools are in fact the focus of our education, but also in our community, making sure that the community is wrapping their arms around with services and resources for all the schools in the state of California. And so we've done that work and we'll continue to do that work because we believe in it and it's absolutely important. I was looking for another bill that I'm doing right now around the educational space. I think it was around nursing, where we are absolutely making sure that we have nursing and healthcare and mental health care providers on campus. Why is that important? Because of the question we just answered before about mental health. It is absolutely important, more so now than ever, that we have mental health professionals in our school system so that we have students can access that and also get the kind of help that is absolutely critical that they need.
Thank you so much. Thank you for
Let me jump in real quick. There's also a assembly bill, I just don't remember the number at this time, that's going to make Cal grants a lot easier to access for students because that's the biggest impediment. Making sure students don't leave college with hundreds of $1,000s worth of debt, and it's a lot of barriers sometimes as to eligibility for Cal grants. So it's an assembly bill that's now making its way through. Hopefully that's going to make it easier for students to qualify, but at the same time reduce their obligation at the completion.
You went on mute, Senator Bradford, but I don't know if you were finished. Okay. All right. Thank you so much. Speaking of which, we were going to tag on to our Cal Grant reform. Just in a nutshell, I know you just touched on it, but do you think this is the best option of student financial aid Or do you think there are different approaches or something else that we can have that will support us financially?
Was that for Senator Bradford to finish what he was talking about Cal Grants? I don't know. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
If there's
Well,
any,
it's a Assembly bill, yes. We believe a reform needs to happen, but we also need to make sure that we as a legislative body guard against tuition increases as well. That's why we need to do a better job of funding our CSUs and our UC systems here in California, because 30 years ago, it didn't cost you $100,000 to get an education. California was one of the best places to go to get a 4-year education that was affordable. And you shouldn't leave college owing more for your college education than some folks owed on purchasing a house 30 years ago. So, so that reform is needed. Also, I'm trying to think, it was another piece that we were looking at. Also, I'm drawing a blank, so I'm going to let Mr. Gipson jump in, and if I can find the other piece that we're working on, I'll let you know as well.
Sure. Thanks a lot, Senator. We know that my colleague, Assemblymember Jose Medina, is the author of Assembly Bill 1456, which was just introduced on February 19th of this year. This is still a work in progress. And also Kevin McCarthy, who hails from Sacramento, and Jose Medina is in the Riverside, San Bernardino area. I support the ability to make it easier for students to leverage Cal Grants, and also the reform of it. We want to make sure that this is not something you have to worry about. We want to make sure that your focus should be on your education, doing your classwork, and making sure that it's easy, making sure that Cal Grants are there for you to leverage, and also they're there to support you as you pursue your career and in your endeavors in terms of higher education. So these bills and these reform bills are mechanisms to try to tear down barriers. Jose Medina hails from as a professor at UC Riverside for many, many years. So, you know, he's a good authoritative person in this space. And I have every confidence that this is a bill that I'll be supporting, because I trust him and I trust where he has taken us, along with Dr. Shirley Weber, who hails from San Diego, who I might add, who just became the first African-American female and the first African-American to be Secretary of State of California, which again, that's saying something. We're tearing down and shattering ceilings. And I just wanted to make sure that we didn't close out without recognizing her and her work. And so with 1456, I'm sure I'll be supporting, as I indicated, because we want to make sure that Cal Grants are in fact reformed, but most of all, that it's there for you, that you can access it, and it helps you over the financial situation that many of us go through while entering to a four-year university. And so we're going to be there supporting that bill as well.
thank you. Just a reminder for everyone, please send your questions over to Stephen directly for a chance to win a $20 gift card. Yes, take advantage of that. Thank you so much for your response. We're going to be moving on and answering some other questions. This is one from a student here. I feel internships are a great opportunity to learn, but it is difficult, especially during the pandemic, to volunteer when families are having trouble making ends meet. It is important to encourage our youth to get more involved in policymaking. Does the senator or assembly member hire paid interns?
For me, I do. We've had before the pandemic, I've had a very robust internship program in my office. I've had 23 people, students, and I just want to put a plug in. Most of them came from Cal State University Dominguez Hills. I'm absolutely excited to partner, and want to thank again Dr. Bradshaw and also Dr. Gamboa. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Gamboa. It'll be Dr. soon. And because the students have been absolutely just tremendous. And we sent them through a very rigorous program, and they come out because they attended Cal State University Dominguez Hill. So they, cream rises to the top, and these students rose. And I tell you, I can't wait till this pandemic's over so we can invite that kind of leadership to my office moving forward. So I'll continue to support internship program, paid and also volunteer as well.
I would echo that as well. It's members on my staff right now that started out as volunteers. And I want to stress that I know it's financial difficulties for a lot of families right now, a lot of students, but sometimes the best way to get in the door is to volunteer. My LEDS director volunteered in my office for 6 months. Now he's a LEDS director and came in that building with no experience. So I encourage that. There are paid internships as well. There are fellowships as well. There are Senate and Assembly fellow programs that you can apply for. But I would stress that the university create and the business world create a better partnership, because when I was in college, there were internships in the corporate world with all the aerospace industries that's been throughout the South Bay. It was great opportunities for students, both high school and in college, to work with Northrop, work with Hughes, to work with McDonnell Douglas, and with all the tech companies now in the South Bay, all the growing industries, we should further those partnerships and grow those and lean on those corporations that are in this community also to invite individuals into the corporate world so they can see firsthand what's involved. My senior year at Cal State Dominguez Hills, I worked as a student assistant sales rep for IBM. And one of the qualifications was I had to be in school in order to get that job, but it was a partnership that IBM had with colleges, and I was able to get that job. And I went on to get hired full-time by IBM, and I was a marketing rep for IBM for 7 years. It was my first job out of college, and it was due to that internship, so to speak, that I was allowed to enter in because I was in college at the time to go work for IBM.
And I just want to echo, or piggyback rather, on something I forgot, and Senator Bradford brought it to my remembrance. I've hired interns, and they became full-time staff members on my team, both in the Capitol and also the district. And many of them have gone on and done great and wonderful things, whether they attended Sac State, whether they attended Cal State University Dominguez Hills. I have a young man who's now working in the governor's office as the assistant secretary to Governor Newsom. And so it's that kind of skills that you will get grow while working with a progressive legislator in this work. So it can branch you off in many, many different directions.
Thank you. Another question. Moving on into housing. A student says, I am concerned with returning to campus. We still have to live. Is there anything being done about low-income housing?
Low-income housing as in housing on campus, or are you talking about just in California, low-income housing?
I would say, let's talk about just in California, because this yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, so we know that housing, first of all, during this pandemic, it has hit everyone. That's the reason why both houses, the Senate and Assembly, supported a bill to place a moratorium on evictions in the state until June. That was absolutely critical because we want to make sure that people stayed in their homes. They weren't victims, fallen victim to homelessness because they lost their jobs due to this pandemic, especially in the hospitality industry or the restaurant industry. Again, we've been rocked in so many different ways because of this pandemic. I'm carrying a bill. It's still dealing with housing. It's Assembly Bill 1199. And Senator Bradford, I'd love to have your support and your co-authorship on this bill. Just put it out there. Let me tell you what this bill does. In the city of Compton, 70% of the homes are owned by corporations, banks, and investing capitalists. 70%. If a house goes into foreclosure, it is those investors and banks who have cash money coming into our homes, into our communities and putting cash money and buying those homes. Then they sit on those homes, and then it makes it unaffordable for people who live in the community to buy a home, even through a first-time home buyers program, and they jacking the prices up. And so this is a way of trying to level the playing field, to making sure that we create a pot of money through an excise tax that will allow first-time home buyers to, one, leverage that money, and it could raise about $1.5 billion, so that this money is set up for first-time home buyers. And if you already, as a property owner, are already setting aside low income, say you own an apartment building, and say 10 of those apartments are geared towards low income, this bill will not affect you, because you're doing exactly what you should be doing, and that is providing opportunities for low income residents to move into your place. And so we're trying to level the playing field and also create transparency, but also making sure that people who want to buy their first home, because I believe a home is the American dream, is the promise that America should be making to all of us to at least come into home ownership. And it's also it's a way to create generational wealth. And so when it comes down to low income, my colleagues are doing some work. We are doing bills. Senator Eggman, we're taking motels and hotels, buying them and putting our homeless brothers and sisters that are still dealing with housing in those places, so they will get them off the street, so they don't have to be homeless, and provide wraparound services. So when we talk about low income, we can't talk about just low income. We got to talk about affordable housing. We got to talk about how do we tear down some barriers that exist in our community to stop gentrification, things of that nature. And so these are kinds of things that we'll be dealing with as a legislature moving forward. Last week, Friday, was the last day to introduce bills. So now we'll be looking at all the bills moving forward that my colleagues, both in the Senate and Assembly, have authored, and it's going to take about 9 months to get through those bills. But I'm excited that we have a lot of good opportunities to create a lot of great policies that's going to affect so many people in a positive way, especially those who are struggling in the housing area.
And I would just piggyback as it relates to affordable housing. The first thing you have to do is remove the stigma of what affordable housing means to be. Many times you have folks who think when you talk about affordable housing, you're talking about low quality housing, you're talking about just people who are not working, who just want to live off the government dime, and that's the farthest thing from the truth. You can make $125,000 a year in some cities, and you can't afford to live there. San Francisco is a prime example. So we need to remove that stigma. But like that NIMBYism is alive and well, and it doesn't necessarily stand for not in my backyard. It stands for many times no Indian, no Mexican, no young, no blacks in their communities. And that's true for a lot of these communities that refuse to be what is below market stigma, that people of color will move into their communities. So that's part of the challenge. But affordable housing is probably the #1 debated issue in the legislature over the last 10 years, especially after the elimination of the redevelopment. Cities like City of Carson hit when Gipson was on council. It afforded them to help developers come into their community, write down dirt, and build housing there. We eliminated that in 2011. So that tool no longer exists. Yes, there were cities that abused their redevelopment agency, but the majority of the cities use it in a effective manner in building quality, affordable homes in these cities, and we're not doing that anymore. So again, we got to remove the stigma of what affordable housing looks like and say housing that's affordable. And that's key, housing that's affordable, because again, if I were to move in the city of Gardena today, a city that I've lived in since I was a little kid, I should say I couldn't afford to move into the city of Gardena today. That's a better way of stating it. I couldn't afford to buy the house that I own right now if I had to buy it today on my salary as a legislator. And we're the highest paid legislator in the country, but I couldn't afford to live in Gardena today to buy a house.
But I also want to piggyback, even though we're maybe the highest, we live in California, so what we get paid really doesn't really put a dent in living in California, because it's absolutely expensive living here. So I don't want everybody to think that we make a whole lot of money, because we don't. Okay, if you break down the hours,
No,
and my salary, I'm making less than minimum wage. So I just want to throw that. But also, what'd you say, Senator?
I agree. That's why I still want to.
Yeah, but I also want to make a point when it comes down to housing. I am so happy, one, that we have a president who's competent, and one who sees what has happened traditionally and historically when it comes down to communities of color around credit and scores of credit, how they're unfair, and how he's looking at that, because understand it was designed to keep us out of creating generational wealth. If you had a bad credit score and right now, you can't think about trying to buy any home or anything like that. But that method was created to keep us from not buying and creating generational wealth. And so this president is looking at that, and I give him kudos and all the applause to look at the not only the hypocrisy, but the bigotry and the discrimination against people of color in this country by these kinds of practices when it was made to disenfranchise us. So I just want to throw that out.
Well, and let me piggyback. Well, I did, which affords renters now to have their rent payments reported to a credit bureau, so they can now build credit, because as Assemblyman Mike Gipson stated, without a credit history, you can't buy a home. So many times your landlord will report your late payment, which damages your credit, but they never report your on-time credit. And there are people who've rented for 20 years or more, never been late, but never got any benefit as it relates to their credit score. So the legislation I authored last year that the governor signed now allows renters that ability to build credit so they can transition to home ownership. As Assemblyman Mike Gipson said, that's the key to the American dream, and it's a first step to generational wealth.
Thank you so much for those tips and that information, because we as students, we have to prepare for that. That is our reality. So thank you so much. We're going to be answering a few more questions. So make sure you tune in for that. But the next question says, what would change for students when it comes to the Assembly Bill 396? Or as in, why were they not eligible before, but now the bill has changed and it makes them eligible now? So I'm not sure if you're all familiar with Assembly Bill 396. No? Okay. All right. Unfortunately, we don't have that one down. Okay, we're going to move on to the next one. I'm a parent of children in the LAUSD district, or LAUSD. We have received notice that schools will slowly start to reopen. Do you feel this move is timely? In my opinion, it is still too soon to try and bring kids back. So what is your response or take on this?
Again, you got to follow the health experts, and once they feel safe, once the Senate is decided and allowed to open schools, I think it's critical that we move forward, but do it in a safe and responsible manner. We were talking about mental health. We have elementary and middle school kids and high school kids that are going through great bouts of depression because they're no longer in the classroom interacting not only with their teachers, but with their friends and classmates. So it's key that we do it in a safe and responsible manner. And it goes back to making sure everybody is vaccinated. Wants it. Everybody should want this vaccination, but we should get in arms of, again, the most vulnerable population. That's our Black and brown community. But it's imperative that we open back up our schools so kids can learn and continue to grow.
Ditto. I have nothing else to add. Senator's already articulated. We can get some more questions in. I'm good.
Sounds great. Okay, we're going to be moving back to what you mentioned before and with housing. The question asks, in addition to stopping gentrification, how do we encourage our neighbors to stop opposing the development of wraparound service centers in our communities?
You went out for a moment. Say again, you went out. Can you repeat it?
Yes. In addition to stopping gentrification, how do we encourage our neighbors to stop opposing the development of wraparound service centers in our communities?
Yeah, I don't think you can stop. I mean, we live in America, right? And people have their rights, although you may not agree with it, but they have their rights to express themselves and to oppose. I mean, that's our process, right? And a person have a right to a freedom of speech. And I just think that, you know, if it's something that you absolutely want, then you organize other people like minds to try to get the support that's necessary. I mean, that's what myself and Mr. Bradford did in order to get elected. People supported us because they believed in us and they believed that we can make a difference. And let me simply say this, you know, I'll say this unapologetically, we have made a difference. When we leave office, we will have made and left the people in our district better than when we found it.
And I would say too that it's imperative that you let your voices be heard. It goes back to racism, and a lot of people want to, you know, dance around that issue. And a lot of times, why folks don't want you to have these services is because, again, they want you in their communities. They don't want you to have the support that you need. So we got to be willing to let our voices be heard, organize, and do it with intent. I mean, without intention to see something through, you just waste your time. So be committed and don't be dissuaded by the negative actions of others, because they'll always be there. And it's just up to you to be willing to push to and make sure you get those type of services that you know you need or the people you need. So there's no easy answer there, but we just got to stay committed.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, our next question is in regards to Assembly Bill 1022. They give more background. So it says, police use of force has been seen much too often. As a student, I feel afraid to see my family and friends and fellow classmates experience this on top of the COVID-19 pandemic. There is a certain line drawn, but most police officers are seen to take advantage of this. Especially after the footage of what's gone on in the public, especially with George Floyd. But the question is, will there be an update to this bill?
I don't know what 1022 does. I know what SB2 does. Police decertification, which was SB 731 last year, which was the most debated police reform bill in the state of California. Unfortunately, at the last minute, it did not receive a vote, but we introduced it in December. It's now, I encourage every person who wants true police reform to support that measure. It's being supported by all of everybody. Al Kuzma with the Lakers. That doesn't mean anything, but I just think the importance of this. And what this does is allow us to get rid of bad cops, because we know there are bad police officers on every police department in the state and across the nation. Right now, you can be fired from a police department or charged for a crime, and you can resign, or you can get hired in another department. This is named after Kenneth Ross Jr. He's a young man, 25-year-old African-American, living right around the corner from me, who was shot in the back in 2018 by a Gardena police officer. And as soon as I heard this, I was just, it's not Gardena police behavior. I've grown up in Gardena since I was looking at the last 4 police chiefs personally, and I've also been on that department for more than 10 years since they were rookies. So I knew this was not the character of a Gardena, only to find out the individual who shot this young man was originally employed in Orange County, and had 3 shootings there, had resigned from the Orange County Department and got hired by the Gardena Police Department. Police decertification will prevent this wash, rinse, and repeat cycle that exists. Bad officers who commit felonious and egregious acts transferring from department to department. So that's the bill I'm supporting, and I'll get to the governor's desk, SB2.
And so the Assembly Bill 1022 is sponsored by Assemblymember Chris Holden, who hails from Pasadena. That's, we pulled it up. It was one of the Legislative Black Caucus's bill that we supported. And what this bill does is that if a police officer see another police officer, or any law enforcement see another law enforcement officer use excessive force and abuse someone, they have a right and a duty to step in and intervene. And so that's what this bill do, but it holds them accountable. And I believe Assemblymember Chris Holden is in fact bringing this bill back before the legislature body for us to support. The Black Caucus supported it last year. I supported the bill last year as well. As what Senator Bradford talked about, I authored a bill that banned chokeholds and carotid artery restraints. I named it the George Floyd bill. And this bill was signed into law that went into effect January 1, 2021, that prohibits law enforcement from choking out folks, especially Black folks and people of color. Before George Floyd, there was Fernand Venezuela in Santa Ana, who was killed in the same fashion that George Floyd was killed, and he left 2 children, and his family got awarded $33.1 million as a settlement. They want their daddy back. Simple as that. The money is, they want their daddy back. And we want to make sure that those kinds of practices doesn't happen again in the state of California. So we're reimagining, you will see, and the Speaker of the State Assembly, Anthony Rendon, appointed me the chair of the police Select Committee on Police Reform, and you will see a whole host of reimagining reforms taking place in California. Mr. Bradford chairs the Senate Public Safety. He has a number of bills dealing with police reform. My colleague, not too far from me, Reginald Jones Sawyer, is the Assembly Chair of Public Safety, who's carrying some bills. So you will see an enormous amount of bills taking place. I'm carrying a bill right now that will do away with police gangs that's in the Sheriff's Department that was exposed. And so we have a bill right now that will hold officers accountable and fire officers if in fact they're caught and have any evidence of being part of a gang. Because when you rolling up on a brother in the streets and you identify him as a gang, you classify him, now he's in a gang database, and he may be a student at Cal State University of Dominguez Hills, but because you've classified him, people are gonna look on him as that. But we have real police officers who are having matching tattoos, who are really in a gang, and they're trying to figure out how many ass to kick, and and get a badge of honor regarding that. And so we want to prohibit our law enforcement from those kinds of practices taking place in this state of California. So you're going to see a lot of aggressiveness when it comes down to police and reimagining what law enforcement looks like in California this year.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much for sharing the actions and implements that you're bringing forth to the table to justify or just to address police reform. So thank you so much. Just a quick note to Senator Bradford, the audio is going in and out from times, so just wanted to let you know and be aware of that. We're heading over to our last question. Thank you so much for your responses that have been great and very detailed and clarifying. So our last question says, I understand that CalFresh is offered to students under certain eligibility requirements, but is there a program in place that helps students with a child or children that helps those individuals that do not qualify for CalFresh within the county?
CalFresh is a county program. In my district alone, I represent the 6th poorest district in the state of California, but we have about less than 40% of the people who are eligible who are actually taking, well, let me digress. Those numbers used to be, but because of this pandemic, I'm sure everybody that is eligible for CalFresh is taking advantage of CalFresh in my district now. But it's still not enough to really make ends meet, but it's a way to try to help. But any ideals that people have, I certainly would love to be able to champion those ideals and working closely with our Board of Supervisor member, Supervisor Holly Mitchell. She's been a champion in this area when it comes out of CalFresh. In the state when she was a state senator, as well as now as a member of the Board of Supervisors. So we would love for you to put some ideals in the chat to see how we can revamp that if necessary to try to move people forward and make their lives better.
Okay, thank you so much. We will now be moving on to our closing remarks. So please, Assemblymember Mike Gipson, thank you so much for sharing. Thank you so much for giving us, thank you so much, life. It's our reality right now. But thank you so much for giving us those responses, and same as well for Senator Bradford. Thank you so much for being here and sharing as well. We will now open it to closing remarks.
Senator?
I hope you can hear me. I want to again thank the University for participating in this town hall. Again, thank you for.
Oh, thank you very much. First of all, I want to say, hope everybody have a great weekend. Stay safe, stay healthy. To Dr. Parham, great leadership. Thank you so very much. To David, to Dr. Bradshaw, and to Deja. You did an excellent job being a wonderful host and moderator. I want to thank all the technical people for putting it all together and everyone for being here. We really appreciate ASI, Cal State University Dominguez Hills. We appreciate you. But I would leave by simply saying this: don't be found guilty of being silent on the things that matter. And I want to encourage and empower each and every one of you to get into some good trouble. In the words of John Lewis, it's time for all of us to get out of our comfort zone and get into some good trouble that's going to make people's lives better and leave an indelible mark to let everybody know you were here and you made a difference in the people's lives here in this state and around. So thank you very much, and God bless you all.
Yes, Dr. Bradshaw, or yes, Dr.
Yeah, so thank you, Deja. And again, just chiming in, excellent job. Thank you, Assemblymember Gipson. Thank you, Senator Bradford. We definitely appreciate not only you being here this afternoon, but all of the work that you do continuously for CSUDH. We feel so spoiled and so blessed to have you both represent us. You both are constantly looking out for CSUDH, our students most importantly, but also everyone in the region as well. I know there were students who had sent some questions, and so I had previously worked with both of your offices, both of your staff, who are amazing. Senator Bradford, your team, and Assemblymember Gipson, your team was also amazing. There may be some questions that I send them that did not get answered here. We want to make sure that every student gets their question answered. So I'll be working with your staff to make sure that those questions get answered, and then ASI will disseminate those answers to the students whose questions didn't get answered. So I thank you for your continued support of this program, as it will go beyond this particular time frame. And so Deja, I just wanted a moment just to give my thanks on behalf of the Office of Government and Community Relations. Thank you for partnering with us. I'm really proud of our students and the civic engagement and the work that they're doing. They were awesome during the election, but I worked with Deja and I said, there's so many other ways to be civically engaged throughout the year. And this is just the start of that. So I appreciate both of you being in support of the ASI mission and the CSUDH mission overall. So thank you again.
Thank you.
If you can hear me, there's an important election on Tuesday. If you can hear me, there's an important election in District 30. If you guys live in that district, I hope for Sydney Kamalager this coming Tuesday.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, I can hear you. What were you saying? I'm so sorry, Senator Bradford. What did you say? Okay.
folks who live in Lumber Park and Ladera and Culver City, make sure they got to vote for Senate 30.
Might have to post it in the chat really quick because we couldn't make out too much of what it was said. But again, as Dr. Bradshaw touched on, we appreciate you all for joining us. Thank you for all your responses. Thank you for even sharing with us the details, the news, and the updates on what's going on. And thank you so much to our audience, everyone who joined us today. Thank you for sitting in, tuning in, and hearing this. I hope that it was very beneficial to you all. And I hope that you learned a lot and you just received the answers that you needed. And that's it. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Go Toros. Yeah, I see you, Mr. Giveaway. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a wonderful weekend to everyone and have a great Friday, the rest of the day.
Great job, Daisha.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, everyone here, because that was a lot. So thank you so much for your efforts. Thank you, Ivan. Thank you, Rahab. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, ASI team members that's here. I should have said all this before everyone left, but thank you so much.
It's on the recording. That's all that matters. Thank you, Stephen. Awesome job. Appreciate all of the back end work. So you all should be very proud. Go enjoy the weekend. Great way to celebrate. So thank you very much. Good to see you, Kendrick.
Hi, Kendrick. I don't know if you remember me, but